The Trojans are 2-0. They're still unranked. You know that. But the pundits, they want to come out of their hibernation dens, kind of like Puxtawani Phil. They want to see what's going on all of a sudden. Are they ready? Is it too soon?
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you. Thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you are watching this show on YouTube, wherever you like to download your podcast, you probably recognize this show is always free. The show is always going to appreciate your support. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So it's not Groundhog Day, although it's starting to kind of feel like it a little bit. All those USC doubters, they're starting to change their tune. They're peeking their heads out. They're looking for their shadow. Do they see it? But they're not totally bought in yet because USC hasn't really played anyone. So just like Phil the Groundhog, he saw a shadow. It's going to take a little bit longer before all those non-believers turn into full-fledged USC believers. Doesn't mean that they're not aware of what's going on out there. That's why they poked out. Wanted to see what's going on. The way you keep, the doubters, the preseason doubters, how you get them to come around, maybe come out early and start jumping on the USC train, jumping on the bandwagon. USC needs to beat Purdue on the road. You get that, you make that happen. Spring kind of gets here quicker, so to speak. You get guys like Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman from On3. They've started to take notice. They've noticed that USC is beating the brakes off the teams they're supposed to. They've been kind of impressed with USC's offense. They've noticed that Jaden Mayaba, he's 31 for 42. 42 passing attempts. He's completed 31. It's pretty good. He's got over 700 yards of passing offense. He's got 6 touchdowns. The best stat, no interceptions. All of a sudden, USC's now on their radar. It takes longer for some, I guess, to see what's been going on. And I get it. I understand why the doubters are kind of, staying in their lane, so to speak. But the worst thing that happened to USC is why they're having such a hard time getting back on the national narrative, so to speak, being part of the conversation. The worst thing that happened to USC and Lincoln Riley, they won 11 games in year one, and they added a Heisman Trophy as well. And you just set an expectation level for the following years. And when you don't meet that expectation level, guess what? You have problems. Doubt starts to creep in. And the people who, have been blowing you up, all of a sudden start knocking you down. So that was the worst. That was the worst thing that happened to USC. Lincoln Riley showed up. They won 11 games in year one. They won the Heisman. USC is back. And everybody, expects more the following season. That didn't happen. The second worst thing that happened to USC and Lincoln Riley, he kept Alex Grinch that extra year. And because of that, instead of taking 11-win season, you kind of wasted Caleb Williams' return with the Heisman Trophy in the system for a second year. And you end up going 8-5. And then last year, when the defense looked good, and when I say look good, I'm comparing it to the first 2 years, it looked great. All of a sudden, Lincoln Riley's offense kind of goes off the rails. All of a sudden, USC's offense looks like a Lincoln Riley offense again, at least through the first 2 games. He's got a strong running game. He's got a tremendous passing game. The tight ends are playing a big role. Those Punxsutawney Phil's, they're starting to take notice. They're noticing that 12 different Trojans have scored an offensive touchdown. They notice it, again, Jaden Mayaba. He looks great being stuck in neutral. If you follow the show, you understand exactly what that means. If you don't, this is why you need to become an everydayer. If you're watching on YouTube, click that red subscribe button, smash that thumbs up, hit that bell notification so you don't miss an episode. So you got that going for you. You've got Jacobe Lane, Makai Lemon. They have everyone's attention. Plus, you got Waymo can go. You get the running back. So now everyone is kind of being cautiously optimistic right now. They can start talking about USC again, maybe in hushed tones. And later on in the show, I'm going to talk about setting the tone. And I got my Friday rant as well, so stick around for that. I got a couple of things I need to get off my chest. But back to this, back to everybody's starting to take notice again. USC has their attention. They see how explosive the offense is. You pair up that offense with a complementary type of defense, USC's in good shape, or they should be in good shape. So again, everyone cautiously optimistic. The next step, beating Purdue. That's going to, again, everyone's going to, once USC gets to 3-0 and they win on the road in conference in the Central or Eastern time zone, all of a sudden everyone's going to come out. They're going to want to enjoy USC's early success. They'll see, all right, they've taken that next step. They're not close. They actually finished. And when I say finished, they finished on the road. They won the game. Being 3-0 and finally getting that conference win on the road. And again, on the road where you're just not driving down the 110 freeway to Pasadena. That's not really a road game for USC. Coming home 3-0 is going to have everyone's attention. I don't know if they'll be ranked. You got Michigan State coming in the following week, and now that game will set up USC traveling on the road to Illinois. That's going to be a big game. That's when everyone is going to come out of their hibernation den and say, all right, USC's 4-0. They beat Michigan State, assuming. And now they're going to play a ranked Illinois team. Could be inside the top 10 by that time. We don't know. But if USC can pull that off, all of a sudden, USC's back into the national conversation. They're 5-0. They're coming home. They're taking on Michigan. They should be ranked, I would hope, by that time. And all of a sudden now the tone is set. What is USC going to do for the rest of the season? First things first, they got to win that game in West Lafayette. I'm going to tell you how they're going to get that done in the next segment. And I'm going to basically what it comes down to, who has the bigger advantage? You can see that. We're going to talk about that and how USC can get the win, but how Purdue can get the win as well. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture. They keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, that belongs to Jacobe Lane. But if you haven't seen the highlight yet, then you're the only one. You've probably been living under a rock. You've been in your hibernation den hanging out with Punxsutawney Phil. Come on out. Enjoy the season. See what's going on. Anyways, Jacobe Lane he's made a bunch of one-handed catches since he's been at USC. But the one he had last week against Georgia Southern, it took it to a whole nother level. I mean, it's almost like he comes equipped with a tow package on his vehicle because he can carry 170 pounds on one arm and catch the pass with one hand using the other arm. That's how good Jacobe Lane was. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Here's why USC is going to win and cover the 21.5 point spread that that you can find over there at FanDuel. Pick your platform. USC is anywhere from 21.5 points or better favorite. If you're going to do that, head on over to FanDuel. So even though Purdue is 2-0, they've looked better than people have anticipated. Remember, everyone picked Purdue to challenge for the bottom spot in the conference, be one of the worst teams. Right now, they don't look like one of the worst teams. They look much improved. They won one game last year. They've already doubled that win total. So again, Purdue's 2-0, USC's 2-0. But remember, like USC, both teams, they've looked good going against bad teams, against lesser competition. And it's all relative. Purdue beat Ball State. Purdue beat Southern Illinois. USC beat Missouri State, as well as Georgia Southern. We know the Boilermakers can fight back and win a game against Southern Illinois at home. They did that last weekend. However, I'm not sure Coach Barry Odom and his team, they can go toe-to-toe with USC's offensive firepower. I just don't know if they have the depth and I don't know if they're dynamic enough, if they're explosive enough to keep up with USC's offense, which has been hella explosive. USC right now, they're averaging 670 yards a game, 66 points per game. Now, Purdue has a really solid running back. They're leaning into that running game. Senior guy, his name is Devin Mockabee. He's good. And they have two capable wide receivers. One of them, Michael Jackson III. Barry Odom is a defensive-minded coach. So Purdue's defense, they're going to try and find a way to contain USC's offense. While USC's defense is going to, they have to stay disciplined. They have to be able to stay committed to stopping the run, because that's what Purdue's going to try and do. They're going to throw the ball, but they know their bread and butter. If they're going to beat USC, they have to set the tempo, and that means running the ball effectively and efficiently, keeping USC's offense off the field. So that's their strategy. Limit USC's possessions, keep the game close. So as I mentioned, Barry Odom, he's a defensive-minded coach. He's thinking, how can I get that offense to be complementary to my defense? Coach Riley, on the other hand, he's an offensive guy. So can Coach Odom out-scheme Coach Riley, who has the better roster? Purdue has the home field advantage. They have some coaching familiarity. Josh Henson, Barry Odom, he coached Jade Mayaba when they were at UNLV together. Coach Riley has him now. And we know Josh Henson, he was at USC when Antonlynn was installing that defense in the last year. So he's got some insight into what's going on at USC, and he's going to pass that along. So who has the advantage? Again, Purdue's at home. I just mentioned the staff has familiarity with USC's personnel, the mindset of Lincoln Riley, the mindset of Antonlynn. However, as I mentioned, USC has the better roster. They have more top-line depth, both sides of the ball. In other words, and I don't want anybody to get injured, but if Purdue didn't have their top running back, Devin Mockabee, available, is there someone behind him who can take over his role and do the type of damage he's capable of? If Purdue loses one of their top two wide receivers, do they have a third and a fourth that can be just as productive? I don't think they do. And I think if Purdue fan is being honest, they'll agree. Their goal is, we got to keep the game close. We got to slow the game down. We got to keep USC's offense off the field. So essentially, Purdue is kind of playing with house money. They have nothing to lose. They can gamble. USC, on the other hand, they have to win this game. That will set the tone. Not just for USC, possibly for Purdue. Definitely for USC, though. They got to get that win on the road. During the week, during this week's media Zoom call with Coach Riley, he was asked about opening on the road and, as I said, setting the tone for the rest of the season. This is how Coach Riley answered the question. Quote, "It's important. This game counts the same as every other big conference game. But yeah, It's certainly important. You want to get off to a good start, just like you do the first game of the season or anything else early on. So yes, it's important. I think it's another step. Winning that first conference road game is great. It's not going to win you the whole thing, but you'd love to start that way. So we're excited to get on the road and play a much improved Purdue team. End quote. Here's how it looked. Losing is never acceptable. However, again, if we're being honest, there's a difference in who you lose to, especially if you're losing on the road. For instance, last year, USC went into Michigan, first game in the conference on the road. A 2-1 USC team coming home after a loss at Michigan is much different than a 2-1 team coming home from a loss at Purdue, a team that just won one game last year. Remember, USC was playing a Michigan team that had just won the national championship. Granted, they weren't the same Michigan team that won the national championship in 2023, but they still had enough guys returning from that roster to make life difficult for USC on the road. And defensively, they did that. They set the tone in that game. USC was the ones, and even though USC had a lead late in the game, defensively, USC did enough, but USC's offense didn't do enough. I hope I emphasize the word enough the right way both times, so you understand where I'm going. USC should have been able to score more points than they did. And they should have been able to handle Michigan's offense without a quarterback. But it was that a couple of breakdowns late in the game, and USC was able to capitalize and get that winning score. Offensively, we know about the pick six. That didn't help either. So USC was a slight favorite going into that game against Michigan. This year, they're a 3-touchdown favorite, 21.5 points. So I did a little research, and I asked, well, when was the last time USC went on the road as a 21.5 point favorite? Well, wasn't that long ago. Back 2 years ago, 2023, the Trojans were literally 21.5 point favorites hitting the road going to Boulder, Colorado. Everyone, anticipated that Colorado, they weren't going to be good that year. Well, guess what? Coach Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, he had those guys ready to play. And USC was able to win that game, but they left with a 48-41 victory. So I won't say they escaped, but they were, they had a big lead and they just somehow weren't able to hold on to it. They ended up winning 48-41. USC, look, they don't have to beat Purdue by 21 or more points, but they have to be close. It has to be a score that looks like USC went on the road, did what they were supposed to. They beat a team they're supposed to beat and get close to that point spread. If they beat them by more than 21, great. That's a great sign. It's something to look forward to for the rest of the season. And again, granted, it's Purdue, but it's an improved Purdue team. And it's a USC team that's still looking how to win on the road in a time zone that, where they have to change the clock. I really don't count the Pacific time zone or the Mountain time zone as having an adverse effect on USC. And I really don't think those other time zones do either. But, as I mentioned on the show the other day, the last 14 times USC has played in the Central or Eastern time zone, they've come home with an L. That's got to stop on Saturday at Purdue. Because if not then, when? Their road games get significantly tougher when they hit the road the next time. At Illinois, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, at Oregon. So this is why this game will set the tone. USC can prove to themselves that they can win on the road, even against bad teams. They weren't even able to do that against Maryland or Minnesota last year. They have to do it out of the box, on the road, in conference play. This time, instead of getting Michigan, they get Purdue. I don't want a long flight home. I do not want a long plane A long plane ride home. I'm sorry, it's late and I'm getting tired, so I apologize for the marble mouth. All right, we got one more segment to go. It's my Friday rant. I got a couple things I'm going to get off my chest. First, we got a couple of things we got to do. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy for everyone. But I found something that makes it easy. It's called Drip Drop. Drip Drop is doctor developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose, and it's going to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of your leading sports drink. I already drink a lot of water to begin with, so staying hydrated, it's natural for me. Now it tastes even better. I just grab one of my favorite flavor powders, open the pouch, pour it in, mix it, drink, boom. I am hydrated and it tastes great. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LockedOnCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LockedOnCollege for 20% off. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. And it's powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more money every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. I'm going to break it down. Let's use King Miller. He did King Miller things again last week. In game 1, he dashed for 75 yards and a touchdown. And then this past week against Georgia Southern, he only needed 41 yards for a touchdown, but it was a nice streak. And just like King Miller delivered for USC, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. It's Friday. Yeah. You know what that means. We're going to end this week of shows. Actually, this isn't the end of this week. I should let everybody know. I'm going to have another extra episode for you tomorrow. Tune in. Game day. Myself, MVP, Marvin Powell III. We're going to do a USC versus Purdue breakdown. Tell you why USC is going to win and what it's going to take for Purdue to win the game if they have a chance. So make sure you tune in for that. And don't forget, I'll also have my post-game instant reaction at some point after the game. So make sure you stay tuned in for that as well. All right. 2 things I need to get off my chest. First of all, I know a lot of you tuned in to yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, and you were looking forward to hearing from Haley Sawyer, AP poll voter, trying to get an understanding of where she was coming from, why she voted, why her ballot looked the way it did. Well, I didn't get that opportunity to ask that question. It was the elephant in the room, and unfortunately, she was asked by her higher ups to not talk about it. Just stop talking about it. Let the news cycle work itself through, and everything will be fine. So that's why I did not ask that question specifically. Nevertheless, so that's why it was all about adapting, adjusting, and moving on. That was really the whole premise behind the whole thing. It's not that I didn't want to ask. It's not that I did not want to ask what happened. I was requested not to, and it left me with 2 choices. Either say, hey, look, Haley, I can't do the interview and get your thoughts on everything else that we want to talk about with USC football, or just kind of like, all right, let's just adapt, adjust, and move forward. I chose adapt, adjust, and move forward. Sorry, that's just how things work sometimes. So bottom line is this. It's not that it didn't matter. I will just say that, okay? It matters. But as much as Haley would have liked to have reclarified her rationale, she was asked not to, and I respected that request. So moving forward, I didn't like it. I dealt with it. So that's the first thing I got to get off my chest with my rant. I wanted to. I had to just respect the request. The other thing, and I'm sure none of you probably like this as well. I don't know, maybe some of you do. The game against Sparty, Michigan State. I know we're focused on Purdue this weekend, but next weekend, Saturday, back home at the Coliseum, it's got an 8 p.m. kickoff scheduled. I'm not happy. That kickoff time, TV chose it. That's a direct result of USC being unranked and not being part of the national conversation. Others might disagree and say, no, that's not why they did it. They need to fill that time slot. That's just Fox doing Fox things. Well, guess what? I don't know anybody who likes to kick off at 8 p.m. The players won't admit it, but I know they don't. I know the coaching staff doesn't want to do it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm wrecked for the next 3 days because the game I kick off at 8, the game ends around midnight, maybe shortly before that. And then you've got a truncated version of, Coach Riley and the players being interviewed. They don't want to hang around past midnight. Then we got to, do a little bit of writing, get some stories published, do the instant reaction show. Before you know it, the sun's coming up. Yeah, I am going to be wrecked. So, not a fan. And had USC been ranked, maybe had they had a better season than last year, I'm not ranting about this. I would be able to brag why USC's kicking off against Michigan State at, prime time, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, getting one of those types of TV slots. But this is a direct result of USC being unranked and opening the season against 3 crappy teams. There's nothing to brag about. There's nothing for the TV people to brag about. Hey, USC's 3-0. They beat Missouri State like a rented mule. They beat Georgia Southern with Clay Helton. Not as bad, but they took them behind the woodshed. And they went out to Purdue and they handled their business on the road against a team that won 1 game last year. This is what they're going to get. Golf clap. Good job, USC. You did what you should have done. I can brag about USC's 132 points on offense through 2 games. And by the way, that's just 1 point less than what that 2005 team did through 2 games that went undefeated until that last game at the Rose Bowl, that championship game that we don't talk about anymore. But yeah, and I'm not saying that's the direction USC is going right now. I'm just making a comparison. In 2005, 133 points through their first 2 games. 20 years later, 1 point less. Just saying. So yeah, being a pinball wizard with your points against Missouri State, Georgia Southern, nothing to brag about. Same thing going up against Purdue. Yeah, you're beating a Big Ten conference team on the road. I guess it gives you a little bit something to brag about. But when that team only won 1 game last year, all of a sudden that sets you up. Come home. And you're playing an 8 p.m. game against Michigan State. Another team that right now they are also 2-0. I don't know what their record will be after this weekend. Hopefully they'll be 3-0. I'd love to have 2 3-0 teams going at it at the Coliseum. Add a little bit more spice to the conversation. But yeah, personally, I don't know about you. I would prefer not kicking off at 8 p.m. I hate those games. Hate them. Because they take forever. And as I mentioned, I'm not as young as I used to be. I used to be able to, recover from these games within 24 hours. Not anymore. Now it takes me 3 days just to get my energy back, to kind of get my internal clock working on schedule again, not feeling run down. So yeah, there you go. And then I have to look forward to getting back on a plane and flying back out to Illinois. I'm looking forward to that game. I just want to be fresh. I want to be ready. And USC better be 4-0 going to that game. But before we get there, USC better be 3-0 after this weekend. Yeah. You're going to enjoy my instant reaction after the game either way. It's more enjoyable when they win. Sometimes it's more entertaining when they lose for the fans because I tend to go off. I let my emotions get the best of me sometimes. And that's the challenge I have being a fan, but separating the journalistic part of it from it. It's a fine line. It's hard. It's hard. But what I do, I enjoy it. Wouldn't change a thing. I have to pinch myself every day because the job it's not work. But again, I'm passionate and I feel it. And I want you to be passionate about it. I want you to be passionate about watching Locked on USC. So until the next episode, everyone, you know what to do.